Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about things that seem difficult to a lot of us, including me. Did you hear that chicken? So you already know I talk a lot about learning English or learning languages in general because English is not my first language, it's my second language. I speak Romanian and I'm from Republic of Moldova. I moved from Moldova to Canada in 2018. I've lived there for 6 years and then we left in 2023 and have been in 2024, sorry, and have been traveling and pet sitting for the past 2 years. And a lot of the times throughout, the videos that I posted or when I talk to people, there's always this question, how did you do certain things, right? How did you learn English? How long did it take you? What exactly did you do? Or how did you immigrate to Canada? How was, the process? What was that like? Or how are you traveling? How are you pet sitting? All of that. So a lot of hows. And a lot of times when I'm starting to explain how I did certain things or how I'm doing certain things, people say, oh, that sounds difficult, or ooh, that sounds like a lot of steps, or ooh, that sounds pretty hard. I understand it's a normal reaction because when you ask me how I immigrated to Canada, for example, I will have a lot of steps to present to you, right? In one little story. So to your brain, that sounds like a lot, But the thing is, I did that over the course of 8 months. So every single time I had to take one step or do one thing that they asked me to or something that was required, it was, that one step during a week or two. It wasn't like you have to do all of this in one day, right? But when people ask how you immigrated to Canada, I kind of have to tell them, the gist of it, and it's just a lot of condensed information in one little story. So the first reaction is like, oh, that's difficult. I was expecting something easier. Or same thing with English, like how did you learn English, And when I start telling them about, talking to yourself in the mirror and recording yourself and practicing every single day and commenting on everything around you and talking to people and how I moved to a different country and how I worked there and how I was in a management position and I had to talk so much to people, blah, 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 blah. That sounds like, whoa, that's a lot. Like I'm not in a position to do that, to be able to do that, right? So when people ask something like, how did you do it? They expect me to give them like, oh, I took this book and I read it and then I spoke English like I am now. And the idea of difficult, I hate actually when people say, ooh, that sounds difficult. To me, something that is difficult is still not impossible, right? And nothing of value and nothing that you really, really appreciate in life comes easily. Because if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? So the fact that something sounds difficult, that's okay. It's just telling you that it's not impossible. So, for example, if I were to tell you, oh, I immigrated to Canada through express entry, being from Moldova, and if you were from a country where express entry doesn't actually apply to, like they don't allow you to participate in this program or to apply through this program if you're from a certain country, then that wouldn't be difficult for you. That would be impossible for you to immigrate to Canada through this specific program. You would have to look into other options, right? So that would be impossible. But if I'm telling you that if you're also from Moldova or from a different country that can apply to that program, then it's just difficult. And I understand it's difficult because, again, those steps are presented to you all at once. Like if you go online right now and read about the requirements and what you have to do, it'll be like, get your education assessed with an official institution in Canada, which means sending your original diplomas to them, waiting for a month or so for them to assess them, then sending them back to you, all of that. then get a medical exam, then do the IELTS test or some other language proficiency test, which we had to, for example, go to a different country to do, or get an employment letter from every single employer you've ever had, which for me, I had to contact my employers from the US from when I was a student and get them to sign some letters and, text them and all of that. So that is also a lot of work. Or get a police certificate from your country or any other country you lived in for more than 6 months, which for me was the US. So I had to literally email and mail the FBI my fingerprints from Moldova in an actual letter, like the paper with my fingerprints on it, sent to them so then they can compare it to their police records and see if I've had any sort of issue there. It was just, now it's electronic, but when I did it, it was all like actual paper sent through actual mail, wait for that mail to come back to Moldova. And anyway, so that's just a small part of it. There's other steps that I'm forgetting right now. But when you hear about all of that, you're like, oh my God, that sounds very difficult, so I'm not going to do it. Okay, that is your choice, right? But if you think about it, immigrating to Canada from a country like Moldova shouldn't really be that easy because, as I said, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And we knew for a fact, because we did that ourselves, we didn't use any agencies or anything, but we knew that if you understand what to do and if you do everything correctly, that is an additional filter on top of your education, your work, and your age and marital status and whatever. That's an additional filter telling them that I was able to understand instructions, to follow instructions, to do what I was told. I knew English, right? Both my husband and I speak English. So they knew that every step of the way is not really that difficult. It sounds very difficult when you look at everything at once. So, for example, first we had to get our diplomas assessed by a Canadian institution. So I had to go to my university in Moldova, get some other documentation to support my diploma that I had at home, put them in an envelope and send them to Canada, hoping they wouldn't get lost on the way and hoping that I selected the right institution to send them to, and hoping that they would actually do what I thought that they would, and then hoping they would send it back to me and it would arrive at the correct address. So, and if you're from a country, like a small country like Moldova, you know that the postal office is not the most streamlined, trustworthy system, and a lot of the times things just get lost and there's no way for you to know what happened. So the point is, going to the university and requesting that document is not really that difficult, right? It's just, you just talk to somebody and you ask them for something. Then getting the right envelope from, I don't know, like a store, and putting your diploma in that document that you just got from your university together and mailing them to Canada is also not that hard. Like, you're just sending some mail. It's really not that hard. And then waiting is pretty easy because you're just waiting. And when you tell someone who has no idea how to do it, who's never read about it, who doesn't know what institution they have to send those papers to, they don't know the steps, they don't understand, that to them almost feels impossible, because first reaction is, oh my God, right now, right at this moment, I have no idea how to do that. So the first reaction is resistance, right? Because, ooh, I can't do that. But you can. You just have to open Google and read. And nowadays, with AI and everything, you can get answers in like a second. And even if you don't understand the logic behind something, you can still ask AI and it will explain it to you, and then it'll make sense in your head, which will make that particular thing seem easier all of a sudden because you understand it. Immigrating to a completely different country, arriving in Canada as a permanent resident, which is full rights, right? Almost a citizen, shouldn't be that easy, right? But it is possible because we did it, and we did it by ourselves. I'm not, a wizard. I don't have supernatural powers. I'm just a regular person who happens to understand and speak English, and I just followed the instructions. Because I have this mentality of not really letting the word difficult stop me, throughout the years, throughout the things that I did in my life, I realized that I shouldn't let my brain analyze something all at once and giving me the conclusion based on that. So it's like the first impression, the first reaction is like, oh my God, that's scary, that's difficult. If I were to think, for example, okay, answer the phones as a receptionist at a dental office right now, for me, if I go to a dental office and I try to pick up the phone and say exactly what I need to say, it'll be very difficult for me because I don't really know what to say. Number two, I haven't answered phones for the past 2 years, so I forgot how to do that. And number three, I wouldn't know how to work the system on the computer. Let's say if somebody calls to make an appointment. So if I go and try to do it today, it'll be very difficult for me. It'll be stressful for me because I'll be like, I don't know what to do. But come back in 2 weeks and ask me again if I think answering the phone at a dental office is difficult. In 2 weeks, I would have done that multiple times daily. I would have already learned how to work the system. I would know how to answer questions. I would know exactly what to say when I pick up the phone. I would know all the buttons. I would know where, the pens are, the notepads are. Like, I would be familiar with my workspace. I would be familiar with the phone system. I would be familiar with the computer system. I would know how to work all of that, and that wouldn't feel foreign to me, wouldn't feel new, right? So things are not hard, they're just new. What people forget about is patience and repetition. If something seems difficult for you, you first hear about it, you're like, ooh, that's difficult. If you allow yourself to be okay with the fact that this will require patience and this will require repetition and time, you'll be fine. It doesn't even matter what you think right now. When you first hear about something, your first reaction or your first impression does not really matter because you are unfamiliar with that thing. It's not an accurate reaction. Your brain just goes on like instinct. It tries to protect you from something unfamiliar because it doesn't know how to handle it, right? So it's a normal thing. You see, a snake on the ground, your brain is going to be like, run. But if you are somebody who works at the zoo and learns, how to deal with snakes and wants to help out with the snakes, they will know over time that those snakes are not venomous, that they are actually friendly. They will learn about their character. They will get used to touching them. And maybe in a few months, they'll feel so much more comfortable around snakes. But your first reaction is going to be like, run and stress and cry and scream. Although that snake is like, bro, I'm just existing here. I don't need to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. So it's the same thing when you get to a new job and you see all these people doing these things and they're so fast and they're so confident and you're like, oh, this is so scary. This is not for me. I'm so bad at this. I don't want to do this. This is so difficult. And yeah, it will feel difficult because it's new and your brain has to adapt. Certain moves, certain ideas, learning new information, doing that, things that you haven't done before, until you get experienced with patience, repetition, and time. So every time I start something new, I know to give myself at least 3 months before I decide, is this really difficult? Is this really hard? So anytime you hear that something is difficult, don't really believe that right away. Don't believe your brain, because your brain is trying to protect you. And if you have this constant block, I don't want to do that because that seems difficult, then that's not true. That's an illusion. If you want to travel, for example, and you say, that it sounds pretty hard to, handle your flights and your hotels and plan all of that in advance and all the activities and all of that, it's really not that hard. I understand some things, or some people might make things look harder than they are because of their attitude, and some people might make some things look easier than they are because of their attitude. Throughout every single experience I had, I realized that if you just trust yourself a little bit more, and you really believe that if you use your best judgment, that's the best you can do, and that's good enough, and that's great. And if something doesn't really work out exactly the way you expected it to, you're just going to learn from it. And every time you'll do something, it'll get easier. And it's crazy how one thing is becoming easier, but the thing itself is not changing. Like picking up the phone at the dental office is not changing. The action itself is not changing. You are just the one to see it a little bit differently every single time you do it. So for you, when people say it was hard at first, but then it got easier, nothing changed. The hard is the same hard for someone new than it is for you. It's not like it got easier. You got familiar with it. You got more experienced. You got more confident. The job itself stayed the same. So that's basically my view on something that is difficult or hard. I just hear not impossible. So yes, I understand it's difficult when you think about it all at once, but it's also not impossible. It can be done. Other people have done it. They're not aliens. They're still human beings, which means I can do it too. And it's just helpful to break down every single big task that feels or sounds or looks difficult to you into smaller, tiny little steps, and kind of just focus on those steps one at a time. Instead of looking, oh God, I have to get up on that hill right now. That looks so far. It looks difficult. I don't want to do it. Focus on one foot, another foot, one foot, another foot, one foot in front of the other. And then you'll look up at some point and you'll be so much more further, and you would be enjoying the process as well, instead of just constantly thinking, oh, I'm still not up on that hill. I'm still not up on that hill. No, just look around. Oh, there's some grass. There's some flowers. I can hear some birds. And one foot in front of the other, you will get on top of that hill. All right, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think is difficult and how you approach that situation, or what has changed from difficult to easy for you. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.